Every story has a beginning, middle, and end. This video is about what happens in the middle of the story. The beginning is where the writer catches the attention of the reader, makes his promises to him, and has the hero get his call to action. The middle of the story starts when the hero either willingly or reluctantly leaves his normal life and starts his adventure. There is not a cookbook formula to writing any story, but there are guidelines. The biggest thing that has to happen in the middle of the story is that the hero must go through many trials and tests and make allies and enemies. Each of these is important. The middle of the story is the place to develop characters and plot. If the characters start out with no growth room, then the character arcs are level. This does not mean that the hero must be flawed in some way, only that he must have room for growth. Frodo was not a flawed character, but he was put in a situation way outside of anything he ever expected and had to grow to his task. If the hero doesn't need to grow in some way through the story, then it's too easy for him, and doing something easy isn't really heroic, at least not in a story. The growth can come in many different ways. Sometimes a hero needs to learn to use magic or overcome some emotional issue. I have a son who likes to make really overpowered characters. Generally, I advise against that, but it can be done, and done well, if the growth must come through other means. For example, in the Camo series, the heroine Jade has the ability to produce and throw plasma. She is very overpowered, but one of her growth arcs is learning to control her power, as if she doesn't, she will kill her team, not just Beast, and she won't be able to save her family. Thus, her growth arc isn't about becoming more powerful, but about learning to control it and learning not to let fear stop her. Thus, heroes must go through trials, very hard trials. The harder the trials, the stronger the character becomes as he conquers them. The Old Testament refers to a refiner's fire, using the symbolism of Christ being the refiner, the fire being our trials, and us being the silver. When a silversmith purifies silver, he takes the silver and puts it in the hottest part of the fire, so it heats up enough to burn out the impurities. He must watch the silver the entire time it is in the fire, as if he doesn't leave it in long enough, the impurities are not burned out. If he leaves it in too long, the silver is burned and ruined. So how does the refiner know when the silver is ready to come out? When he can see his reflection in it. This is an important analogy for us in our lives. At times we experience hard trials. We feel like we are in the hottest part of the fire, but Christ is our refiner. He is watching, and we will be purified when we can see his reflection in us. Characters must go through the refiner's fire to become heroes. This is necessary. Trials make heroes. This is not just true of stories, it's true for life. We all have trials in life. Some are from our own choices, some are thrust upon us and out of our control. Yet we can give in to the trials and let us conquer them, or we can overcome them and be stronger. Sometimes we try to overcome and don't. We can fail many times before succeeding. Life can be very hard. It sounds nice to have life just be easy, but would it really be? If everything was easy, there would be no challenges, and we would not really progress. People with very easy lives tend to be shallow. They tend to not understand hardship or the value of hard work or how to keep going when it gets hard. There is so much growth that is missed out on. Now, I'm not saying trials are so great and everyone should go do stupid things to cause trials, but I'm saying that if you are living a normal life, you have trials, and those can be used to break you or make you stronger. Choose to overcome them and be stronger. Trials, particularly overcoming them, makes for strong heroes, so don't be afraid to throw your hero into seemingly impossible situations or have things go wrong for him. As the hero goes along, he doesn't have to face his trials alone. He will make allies who will help him. He will also make enemies who cause more trials. The middle of the story needs to develop the plot so that the story increases in intensity as it goes on. There are various ways to do this without arbitrary plot devices, but essentially the stakes have to rise. If the stakes rise high enough and the trial is hard enough, the hero should hit his death that was talked of in the video of the hero's journey. When trying to figure out how to get the stakes high enough and the plot intense enough to bring about the figurative hero's death, ask yourself, what would it take to break this character? Look at possibilities and choose the best option. Then the hero must overcome and have his rebirth. If he doesn't, he isn't really a hero, he's a tragic figure. This is also a lesson for life. When we hit really hard times, remember that we are going through our hero's death, but that we can also have our rebirth. So don't give up, stay strong, and be the hero. I generally talk about the hero, but side characters need to be developed during the middle of the story too. So do villains. The villain actually drives the story. In drama, there is a saying that says the show is only as strong as your villain. And that is true of books too. If the villain is weak, then the hero doesn't have to be very heroic, so there's little intensity, and the story is level. Thus, it's important to know and develop the villains too. I'll get into how to do that in my video on writing villains. I'll also do a video on side characters. Their level of development depends on how important they are, but developing side characters really fills out the world and brings a lot of depth. Some stories require more side characters than others, but every story needs them. One more very important point about the middle is that it can't be formulaic or forced. Where the villain drives the plot, the characters drive the story. As it's connecting to the characters and wanting to see them succeed that keeps readers reading. This too will be addressed with more specifics in another video. So that's an overview of what goes on in the middle of a story, and specifics on how to develop characters and plot and gain intensity following the drama curve will be in other videos. How does this apply to life? Well, you will go through trials and tests too, but keep working toward the goal and triumph, and you will succeed. Now, let's move on to part 3 and talk about endings. Before you do, please like, subscribe, and comment.